Anger is a powerful emotion that can have devastating effects if left unchecked. In How to Control Your Anger, the Roman philosopher Seneca offers timeless wisdom on understanding, managing, and ultimately overcoming anger. The work is divided into 3 books, each addressing different aspects of anger, from its nature and causes to strategies for controlling it. Seneca's teachings, rooted in Stoic philosophy, provide a comprehensive guide for anyone seeking to live a calmer, more rational life. Book 1. Understanding the Nature of Anger. Introduction. The nature of anger. Seneca opens his treatise on anger by establishing that anger is one of the most dangerous emotions humans can experience. He identifies anger as a natural part of the human emotional spectrum, but emphasizes that it is also the most destructive. Unlike other emotions that may come and go without lasting harm, anger has the potential to cause profound damage to others, to society, and most critically, to the person who harbors it. Seneca argues that anger is not simply a reaction to external events, but is deeply intertwined with our internal judgments and perceptions. We often become angry when our expectations are not met, or when we perceive an injustice. However, Seneca warns that our perceptions are often flawed, leading us to react with anger when it is neither necessary nor justified. The central theme of this introduction is the idea that while anger may feel justified at the moment, often leads to irrational and harmful behavior. Seneca urges us to understand the true nature of anger so that we can begin to manage it effectively. He challenges the reader to consider whether the outcomes of anger are ever truly beneficial, suggesting that they are more likely to be harmful. Chapter 1. Problem of Anger. In the first chapter, Seneca delves deeper into the problem of anger, identifying it as one of the most pervasive and harmful emotions. He notes that anger is unique among emotions because it often feels righteous or justified, making it difficult to recognize its destructive potential. This sense of righteousness is what makes anger particularly dangerous. It convinces us that our actions, no matter how extreme, are warranted. Seneca describes how anger can quickly escalate from a minor irritation to a full-blown rage. Unlike other emotions, which may dissipate over time, anger tends to build upon itself, growing stronger the longer it is left unchecked. This escalation can lead to actions that are far out of proportion to the original cause of anger, resulting in harm that might be irreversible. Furthermore, Seneca argues that anger not only harms others but also consumes the person who feels it. He describes anger as a fire that burns within, causing stress, anxiety, and a host of physical and emotional ailments. This internal turmoil can lead to a cycle of negativity, where anger breeds more anger, leading to further suffering. Seneca concludes this chapter by emphasizing the need to recognize the problem of anger in our lives. By acknowledging the harmful effects of anger, both on ourselves and on those around us, we can begin to take steps to control it. Chapter 2. Anger is Temporary Madness. One of Seneca's most famous observations about anger is that it is temporary madness. In this chapter, he expands on this idea, explaining that when we are consumed by anger, we lose control over our rational faculty. Anger, he argues, is akin to a form of insanity where we are no longer able to think clearly or make sound decisions. Seneca compares anger to other forms of madness, noting that it blinds us to reason and makes us act against our better judgment. When angry, we may say or do things that we would never consider when calm. This loss of control is what makes anger so dangerous. It can lead us to take actions that have devastating consequences, both for ourselves and for others. Philosopher highlights the urgency of managing anger before it reaches this point of madness. He suggests that by recognizing the signs of anger early, such as increased heart rate, tension, and the urge to retaliate, we can take steps to calm ourselves before our anger spirals out of control. Seneca's depiction of anger as temporary madness serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of self-control. He urges us to remain vigilant against the onset of anger and to cultivate the ability to step back and regain our composure before making decisions. Chapter 3. Anger as a Self-Destructive Emotion. In this chapter, Seneca discusses the self-destructive nature of anger. He argues that while anger often targets others, it is ultimately the person who harbors anger who suffers the most. Anger corrodes the mind, leading to a state of constant agitation and unrest. This mental turmoil can manifest in physical symptoms such as headaches, high blood pressure, and insomnia. Seneca explains that anger disrupts our inner peace, making it impossible to enjoy life's pleasures or to think clearly. When we are angry, our thoughts are consumed by the object of our anger, leaving little room for anything else. This obsessive focus on the source of our anger prevents us from living in the present moment and enjoying the good things in life. Moreover, Seneca warns that anger can lead to actions that have long-term consequences. In a fit of rage, we may say or do things that we later regret. But once the damage is done, it cannot be undone. This can lead to feelings of guilt, shame, and further anger, creating a vicious cycle that is difficult to break. The philosopher emphasizes that the first victim of anger is always the person who feels it. By allowing anger to dominate our thoughts and actions, we are essentially harming ourselves. Seneca urges us to recognize the self-destructive nature of anger, to take steps to manage it before it takes control of our lives. Chapter 4. Causes and Triggers of Anger. Seneca turns his attention to the causes and triggers of anger in this chapter. He explains that anger often arises from unmet expectations or perceived injustices. When reality fails to meet our desires or when we feel wronged by others, anger is a common response. However, Seneca advises that we examine our expectations, recognize that many of them are unrealistic or based on false perceptions. For example, we may become angry when others do not behave in the way we expect them to. But this is often because we have unrealistic expectations about how people should act. Similarly, we may become angry when things do not go our way, but this is often because we fail to accept the unpredictability of life. Seneca suggests that by adjusting our expectations and understanding that life is full of challenges and disappointments, we can reduce the frequency and intensity of our anger. He advises cultivating a mindset of acceptance and understanding, where we recognize that not everything will go according to plan, and that people will sometimes fail to meet our expectations. Furthermore, Seneca discusses how anger can be triggered by misunderstandings or misinterpretations of others' actions. He encourages us to give others the benefit of the doubt and to seek to understand their perspective before reacting with anger. By practicing empathy and patience, we can avoid many of the situations that lead to anger. Chapter 5. Anger in Children. Seneca also addresses the issue of anger in children, observing that anger often appears early in life. Children, lacking the ability to control their emotions, can be particularly prone to anger when their needs or desires are not met. This is especially true when they are frustrated, tired, or feel they are being treated unfairly. Seneca suggests that it is the responsibility of parents and educators to teach children how to manage their anger. He advises that this should be done through patience, understanding, and guidance, rather than through harsh discipline. Children need to be taught that anger is a natural emotion, but they also need to learn how to control it and express it in healthy ways. The philosopher emphasizes the importance of addressing anger in childhood, prevent it from becoming a deeply ingrained habit in adulthood. He warns that if children are not taught to manage their anger, they may grow up to be adults who struggle with controlling their emotions, leading to difficulties in their personal and professional lives. Seneca encourages parents to model calm and rational behavior, showing children by example how to handle difficult situations without resorting to anger. By teaching children the skills they need to manage their emotions, parents can help them grow into well-adjusted adults who are capable of handling life's challenges with grace and composure. Chapter 6. Is anger ever useful? In this chapter, Seneca poses a challenging question. Is anger ever useful or justified? Some might argue that anger can be a powerful motivator, driving us to take action or defend ourselves when necessary. However, Seneca firmly rejects this idea. He argues that while anger might sometimes lead to action, it is not the best motivator. Anger clouds judgment and leads to impulsive decisions that are often regrettable. According to Seneca, there are better ways to achieve our goals without resorting to anger. Reason and calm deliberation are far more effective tools for problem solving and decision making. Seneca also refutes the notion that anger is necessary for self-defense or for standing up against injustice. He argues that courage and strength do not require anger. They can be rooted in reason and virtue. A person who is calm and rational is better equipped to assess a situation, make sound decisions, and take effective action. Furthermore, Seneca points out that even in situations where anger might seem justified, it is still a destructive force that should be avoided. Anger, by its very nature, is irrational and uncontrolled. It may lead to outcomes that are far worse than the original offense, causing harm to both the person who is angry and those around them. Seneca concludes that anger is never truly useful or justified. It is always better to approach situations with a clear mind and a calm heart, relying on reason and virtue to guide our actions. Chapter 7. The Philosopher's View on Anger. In this chapter, Seneca reflects on how philosophers view anger, emphasizing that they see it as a sign of weakness rather than strength. He argues that true strength lies in maintaining control over one's emotions, especially in difficult situations. Seneca highlights that philosophers, guided by reason and virtue, seek to avoid anger altogether. They recognize that anger is a barrier to clear thinking and effective action. A person who is consumed by anger is unable to make rational decisions or to act in a way that is consistent with their values and principles. The philosopher's goal, according to Seneca, is to live a life of tranquility and inner peace. This requires cultivating self-control and emotional resilience, so that one is not easily swayed by the passions of anger. By practicing mindfulness and self-awareness, philosophers strive to remain calm and composed, even in the face of provocation. Seneca encourages the reader to adopt the philosopher's view on anger, recognizing it as a destructive force that undermines our ability to live a virtuous and fulfilling life. He advises cultivating the virtues of patience, understanding, and forgiveness, which can help us avoid anger and maintain our inner peace. Chapter 8. The Uncontrolled Nature of Anger. Finally, Seneca explores the uncontrolled nature of anger in this chapter. He explains that once anger takes hold, it is difficult to control or stop. Anger often escalates quickly, leading to actions that are out of proportion to the original cause. Seneca describes how anger can consume a person, driving them to act in ways that they later regret. This is because anger, once ignited, feeds on itself, growing stronger and more intense. The philosopher warns that unchecked anger can lead to destructive behavior, such as violence or revenge, which can have lasting consequences. He stresses the importance of recognizing the signs of anger early and taking steps to calm oneself before it spirals out of control. This might involve taking deep breaths, stepping away from the situation, or engaging in activities that help to diffuse the anger. Seneca concludes by emphasizing that the key to controlling anger lies in self-awareness and self-discipline. By being mindful of our emotions and taking proactive steps to manage them, we can prevent anger from taking control of our lives. Book 2, Strategies for Controlling Anger. Chapter 1, Strategies for Preventing Anger. In this opening chapter of the second book, Seneca emphasizes the importance of preventing anger before it takes root. He argues that anger, like a fire, is easier to extinguish when it is still small. Once it grows, it becomes far more challenging to control. Self-awareness and mindfulness. Seneca stresses the role of self-awareness in managing anger. He advises that we must be vigilant about our emotional state, paying close attention to the first signs of irritation or frustration. This awareness allows us to take steps to calm ourselves before anger fully develops. Mindfulness, or the practice of being fully present in the moment, is key to this process. By staying attuned to our thoughts and feelings, we can intercept anger before it takes hold. Cultivating patience. Patience is another essential strategy for preventing anger. Seneca encourages us to develop patience as a virtue, reminding us that many things that provoke anger are trivial or fleeting. By practicing patience, we can learn to tolerate minor irritations and delays without becoming upset. This doesn't mean ignoring problems, but rather approaching them with a calm and measured response. Practicing forgiveness. Seneca also advocates for the practice of forgiveness as a means of preventing anger. He argues that by forgiving others for their mistakes or offenses, we can release the negative emotions that often lead to anger. Forgiveness is not about condoning wrongdoing, but about freeing ourselves from the burden of resentment. Seneca suggests that we remind ourselves that everyone is flawed and that we too make mistakes. This perspective makes it easier to forgive and prevents anger from festering. Avoiding triggers. Another practical strategy Seneca discusses is the importance of avoiding situations that are likely to provoke anger. He advises that we know our triggers, whether it's a particular person, situation, or environment, and take steps to avoid them when possible. For example, if a certain type of conversation tends to provoke anger, we might steer clear of it. Or if a specific individual frequently angers us, we might limit our interactions with them. Developing understanding and compassion. Finally, Seneca suggests that we cultivate a mindset of understanding and compassion. By trying to understand the reasons behind others' actions and by practicing empathy, we can reduce the likelihood of becoming angry. Compassion allows us to see beyond our immediate emotional response and to approach situations with a sense of humanity and kindness. This shift in perspective can be a powerful tool in preventing anger from arising. Chapter 2: How to Recognize and Address Anger. In this chapter, Seneca focuses on recognizing and addressing anger when it arises. While prevention is ideal, it's also crucial to know how to handle anger effectively once it has taken hold. Power of pause. Seneca advises that when we feel anger beginning to rise, we should take a moment to pause and reflect, before reacting. This pause allows us to regain control over our emotions and to think more clearly about the situation. The act of pausing can prevent us from saying or doing something in the heat of the moment that we might later regret. Questioning justification. During this pause, Seneca recommends asking ourselves whether our anger is truly justified. Is the situation as serious as it feels? Is our anger proportional to the offense? Often, by questioning the validity of our anger, we can see that it is based on misperception or an exaggerated sense of injustice. This realization can help to diffuse the anger before it escalates. Finding healthy outlets. Seneca also suggests finding healthy outlets for anger. Rather than suppressing anger, which can lead to resentment and bitterness, it's important to express it in a constructive way. Seneca mentions physical exercise as an excellent outlet for releasing pent-up energy and tension. Another approach might be talking through your feelings with a trusted friend or confidant who can provide perspective and support. The goal is to express the anger in a way that allows you to let go of it without causing harm to yourself or others. Addressing anger constructively. Seneca emphasizes that once we have recognized our anger, we should address it constructively. This means seeking solutions rather than dwelling on the problem. If someone has wronged us, it might involve calmly discussing the issue with them and finding a resolution. If the anger is directed at a situation beyond our control, it might mean accepting it and focusing on what we can change. E is to channel the energy of anger into positive action rather than letting it consume us. Chapter 3: Techniques for Calming Anger. When anger has already taken hold, Seneca offers several techniques for calming it. Deep breathing exercises. One of the simplest yet most effective methods Seneca suggests is deep breathing. He explains that deep, slow breaths can help to slow the heart rate and induce a state of calm. By focusing on the breath, we can divert our attention away from the source of our anger and bring our body and mind back into balance. This technique is accessible and can be practiced anywhere, making it a practical tool for managing anger. Practicing detachment. Another technique Seneca advocates is the practice of detachment. This involves mentally stepping back from the situation and reminding ourselves that the source of our anger is often temporary and not worth disturbing our peace of mind. Detachment doesn't mean ignoring the issue, but rather maintaining a sense of perspective. By distancing ourselves emotionally, we can prevent anger from overwhelming us and clouding our judgment. Visualization techniques. Seneca also recommends visualization as a way to calm anger. This might involve imagining yourself in a calm and peaceful place, far removed from the source of your anger. Visualization can help to shift your focus away from the immediate trigger and create a sense of tranquility. This mental exercise can be particularly helpful in diffusing intense emotions and regaining control over your reaction. Reframing thoughts. Reframing is another powerful technique discussed by Seneca. This involves changing the way we think about a situation in order to alter our emotional response. For example, instead of viewing someone's rudeness as a personal attack, we might reframe it as a reflection of their own struggles or insecurities. By shifting our perspective, we can reduce the intensity of our anger and respond more calmly. Chapter 4: Anger in Leadership and Governance. Seneca addresses the specific challenges of managing anger in positions of leadership and governance, recognizing that leaders wield significant power and influence, which makes controlling anger particularly crucial. The danger of anger in leadership. Seneca warns that a leader who cannot control their anger is likely to make poor decisions that can lead to conflict and division. Anger impairs judgment, causing leaders to act impulsively or vindictively, rather than in the best interests of those they lead. Seneca notes that history is replete with examples of leaders whose anger led to disastrous consequences, both for themselves and for their people. The importance of wisdom, patience, and justice. In contrast to anger, Seneca emphasizes the importance of wisdom, patience, and justice in leadership. He argues that a wise leader is one who can maintain composure in the face of provocation and who values reason over emotion. Patience allows a leader to consider all aspects of a situation before acting, while justice ensures that decisions are fair and equitable. These qualities, Seneca suggests, are incompatible with anger, which is often driven by ego and a desire for revenge rather than a commitment to fairness. Surrounding oneself with wise counselors. Seneca advises leaders to surround themselves with wise counselors who can offer guidance and help them maintain their composure in difficult situations. These advisors can serve as a check on the leader's emotions, providing perspective and helping to prevent hasty decisions made in anger. By relying on the counsel of others, leaders can ensure that their actions are measured and in the best interest of the people they serve. Chapter 5: Controlling Anger in Others. Seneca recognizes that while controlling our own anger is challenging, we also frequently encounter anger in others. He offers strategies for managing and diffusing anger in those around us. Responding with calmness and understanding. Seneca suggests that the best way to respond to someone else's anger is with calmness and understanding. Reacting with anger in return only escalates the situation and leads to further conflict. Instead, Seneca advises maintaining a composed demeanor and speaking in a calm, measured tone. This approach can help to de-escalate the situation and prevent the anger from spreading. Understanding the other person's perspective. Another strategy Seneca discusses is the importance of trying to understand the other person's perspective. Often, anger arises from a place of hurt, fear, or frustration. By empathizing with the other person's feelings and acknowledging their concerns, we can create a space for constructive dialogue rather than conflict. This understanding can also help us to address the root cause of their anger and find solutions that are acceptable to both parties. Offering support and solutions. Seneca also recommends offering support or practical solutions to help diffuse the other person's anger. Sometimes, simply showing that you are willing to listen and help can be enough to calm someone down. If the anger is related to a specific problem, offering a solution or compromise can demonstrate goodwill and a desire to resolve the issue. The goal is to shift the focus from the anger itself, finding a way forward. Power of a composed demeanor. Finally, Seneca highlights the power of maintaining a composed demeanor in the face of someone else's anger. By staying calm and not allowing yourself to be drawn into the emotional turmoil, you set an example for the other person to follow. This can have a calming effect, encouraging them to mirror your behavior and approach the situation with a clearer mind. Chapter 6: The Stoic Approach to Anger. In the concluding chapter of Book 2, Seneca outlines the Stoic approach to anger, which is rooted in the principles of reason and virtue. Living in accordance with reason and virtue. Seneca explains that Stoicism teaches the importance of living in accordance with reason and virtue, which means rejecting anger as a harmful and irrational emotion. Stoics believe that our ultimate goal should be to achieve a state of inner peace and tranquility, free from the disturbances of irrational emotions like anger. By cultivating reason, we can maintain control over our reactions and avoid the destructive influence of anger. Focusing on what is within our control. A key tenet of Stoicism is the distinction between what is within our control and what is not. Seneca advises that we focus our energy on what we can control, thoughts, actions, and attitudes, and accept what we cannot control, such as the actions of others or external events. By recognizing that many things that provoke anger are beyond our control, we can reduce our emotional investment in them and maintain our inner peace. Practicing acceptance and detachment. Seneca also encourages the practice of acceptance and detachment as a way to minimize anger. Acceptance involves acknowledging that life is full of challenges and that we cannot always change or avoid them. Detachment means not allowing these challenges to disturb our inner tranquility. By adopting this Stoic mindset, we can view life's difficulties with equanimity and avoid the emotional turmoil that often leads to anger. The role of mindfulness in Stoicism. Finally, Seneca highlights the role of mindfulness in the Stoic approach to anger. Mindfulness involves being fully present and aware of our thoughts and emotions without being swept away by them. By practicing mindfulness, we can observe our anger as it arises and choose not to act on it. This awareness allows us to respond to situations with reason and calmness, rather than being driven by our emotion. Book 3. The Consequences and Management of Anger. Chapter 1. Examples of Anger from History. In the third book, Seneca uses examples from history to illustrate the destructive power of anger. These stories serve as cautionary tales, highlighting the consequences of allowing anger to control one's actions. Historical figures. Consumed by anger. Seneca recounts the stories of various historical figures who were consumed by anger, leading to their downfall or causing great harm to others. These figures include tyrants, rulers, and military leaders whose inability to control their anger resulted in disastrous outcomes both for themselves and for those under their command. Seneca uses these examples to demonstrate how anger can cloud judgment, fuel reckless behavior, and ultimately lead to ruin. Lessons from history. The lessons from these historical examples are clear. Anger is a powerful and dangerous emotion that must be controlled. Seneca emphasizes that even those in positions of great power are not immune to the destructive effects of anger. The stories serve as a reminder that anger can lead to irreversible consequences, and that the ability to control one's emotions is a mark of true strength and wisdom. Chapter 2. The Consequences of Unchecked Anger. Seneca then discusses the broader consequences of unchecked anger, emphasizing that it can lead to tragic outcomes not only for the individual, but also for society as a whole. Escalation into violence and revenge. Seneca explains that anger often escalates into violence, revenge, and other destructive behaviors. When anger is allowed to grow unchecked, it can drive people to commit acts of aggression or retaliation that they would never consider when calm. These actions can have long-lasting effects, including legal consequences, damaged relationships, and a tarnished reputation. The ripple effect of anger. Anger doesn't just affect the person who feels it, it can also have a ripple effect on those around them. Seneca notes that anger can spread like a contagion, influencing others to act in similarly destructive ways. This can lead to a cycle of conflict and retaliation, creating an environment of hostility and fear, the loss of relationships and peace of mind. Seneca warns that those who allow anger to control them risk losing their relationships, reputation, and peace of mind. Anger can drive a wedge between people, leading to broken friendships, estranged family members, and a sense of isolation. It also disrupts inner peace, as the person consumed by anger is constantly agitated and unable to enjoy life's pleasures. The importance of managing anger. Seneca stresses the importance of recognizing the dangers of anger and taking steps to manage it before it leads to irreversible consequences. By being mindful of our emotions and practicing self-control, we can prevent anger from taking over our lives and causing harm to ourselves and others. Chapter 3. The Virtue of Clemency. In this chapter, Seneca introduces the concept of clemency, or mercy, as a virtue that stands in opposition to anger. The strength of clemency. Seneca argues that practicing clemency requires strength and wisdom, as it involves forgiving those who have wronged us and choosing to respond with kindness rather than anger. Clemency is not a sign of weakness but of moral strength, as it takes greater effort to forgive than to retaliate. By showing mercy, we rise above the impulses of anger and act in accordance with our highest value. Clemency as a tool for harmony. Seneca suggests that clemency is a powerful tool for maintaining harmony and building strong relationships. When we choose to forgive rather than seek revenge, we create an environment of trust and cooperation. Clemency fosters goodwill and encourages others to act with kindness and understanding in return, overcoming the impulse to retaliate. One of the key challenges in practicing clemency is overcoming the impulse to retaliate when we feel wrong. Seneca acknowledges that this impulse is natural, but argues that it is counterproductive. Retaliation only perpetuates the cycle of anger and conflict, whereas clemency breaks the cycle and promotes peace. The benefits of clemency. Seneca concludes that clemency benefits not only those who receive it, but also those who practice it. By choosing mercy over anger, we free ourselves from the burden of resentment and achieve a sense of inner peace. Clemency allows us to maintain our dignity and integrity, even in difficult situations. Chapter 4. Anger and Justice. Seneca explores the relationship between anger and justice, arguing that true justice is not driven by anger, but by reason and fairness. The dangers of anger-driven justice. Seneca explains that when we seek justice out of anger, we are likely to overreact and punish more harshly than is warranted. Anger distorts our perception of the situation, leading us to believe that a more severe punishment is justified. This can result in injustice, as the punishment may not fit the crime. The importance of impartiality. True justice, according to Seneca, requires impartiality. This means setting aside personal emotions and biases in order to evaluate the situation fairly. Anger is incompatible with impartiality, as it clouds our judgment and leads us to make decisions based on emotion rather than reason. Administering justice with a clear mind. Seneca emphasizes that justice should be administered with a clear and impartial mind, free from the influence of anger. He argues that when we approach justice with calmness and reason, we are more likely to arrive at a fair and appropriate outcome. This not only ensures that justice is served, but also preserves our own integrity and moral standing. The role of forgiveness in justice. Seneca also discusses the role of forgiveness in justice, suggesting that in some cases, mercy may be more appropriate than punishment. He argues that forgiveness can be a form of justice, as it allows for the possibility of rehabilitation and reconciliation. By balancing justice with mercy, we can achieve outcomes that are both fair and compassionate. Chapter 5. Power of Rational Thought. In the final chapter, Seneca highlights the power of rational thought in overcoming anger, challenging assumptions and beliefs. Seneca explains that by using reason and logic, we can challenge the assumptions and beliefs that fuel our anger. For example, we might realize that the person who angered us did not intend to cause harm, or that the situation is not as serious as we initially thought. By reframing our thoughts in a more rational and balanced way, we can reduce the intensity of our anger. Reevaluating the importance of the trigger. Seneca suggests that we ask ourselves whether the source of our anger is truly worth our emotional investment. Often, we become angry over minor or trivial matters that, in the grand scheme of things, are not worth the loss of our peace of mind. By reevaluating the importance of the trigger, we can let go of our anger and focus on more meaningful aspects of life. Using reason to maintain composure. Seneca emphasizes that reason is our most powerful tool for maintaining composure in the face of provocation. By keeping our emotions in check and responding with logic rather than impulse, we can navigate difficult situations with grace and dignity. This not only helps us to avoid the destructive consequences of anger, but also strengthens our character and resilience. Cultivating a rational mindset. Finally, Seneca encourages us to cultivate a rational mindset as a way of life. This involves practicing mindfulness, self-reflection, and critical thinking on a regular basis. By making reason the foundation of our decision-making, we can prevent anger from taking control and live a life of greater harmony and fulfillment. Conclusion. Final reflections on anger. Seneca concludes his work with final reflections on anger, reminding us of the importance of controlling this powerful emotion. He emphasizes that anger is not a sign of strength but of weakness, and that true power lies in maintaining control over our emotions. Seneca encourages us to strive for a life of reason, virtue, and inner peace, free from the turmoil that anger brings. By following his teachings, we can learn to master our anger and live a more fulfilling and harmonious life. Call to action. If you found this summary insightful, consider applying some of Seneca's teachings in your own life. Start by observing your reactions and noticing when anger begins to rise. Practice the techniques discussed here to manage your anger, prevent it from controlling you. And don't forget to subscribe to Beyond Books for more summaries and insights from timeless philosophical works. Share your thoughts on Seneca's approach to anger in the comments below, and let us know how you plan to incorporate these lessons into your daily life.